Welcome back to another episode of the Nomad Summit podcast. And today, Christoph, it's just you and me.
It's just you and me.
Because we are going to be talking about insurance for nomads and why call an expert when we already have one in the house. Because what people might not know is that you're an insurance broker and you've been that for quite a while.
Yeah, actually, I started my career in marketing. But then back in 2008, I met my later business partner who had been an insurance broker for quite a while already. And we founded a company on the German market that is specialized in children's health insurance as an independent broker. So it sounds a little bit like a niche, but Germany has quite a special and big market when it comes to private health insurance, as it's the only country in the world that on the one side has a universal healthcare system for everybody, but on the other side allows you to opt out of this public system and go fully private if you meet certain criteria. And about 13% of people in Germany do that. And especially when they mate, when there are parents to be, one is in the public system, one is in the private system, then there are a lot of questions about what to do with the kid. And that's exactly the field of expertise that we dove in and decided to become the experts with a company that was also my first remote company. We grew that. So we founded the business in 2010. And in 2017, it allowed me to leave the country, work fully remotely, and grow it to a little team of 8 in the peak.
It seems like a bit of a jump because I also have a background in advertising, and I worked at agencies before I went full-time into radio and podcasting. And for me, that jump wasn't that big, but I feel like jumping from something as creative as advertising and then into something, and no offense here, something boring like insurance. Is it boring?
I totally get what you mean. And actually, you can apply a lot of creativity, especially as an independent broker, and see how you can actually help people. To manage expectations here, you can't help people anymore once they're sick and need medical attention urgently. That's too late for insurance. Insurance is in place, and that's like something, a general basic knowledge that people often lack. Insurance is a mean to cover uncertain risk. So that means if you are perfectly healthy and you're looking for risk mitigation for future medical risks, then buying insurance today is the way to go. Like with like your car, your household, all the things where you buy insurance for. You can't insure a burning house. You might have heard that before. But before your house is on fire and your probability of your house ever burning is a calculable average, like with every other house, then what insurance does is basically pool these risks. They know that statistically a certain amount of houses are catching fire every year. And if the amount of people who contribute to the pot is big enough that they can cover the loss, this risk, for that one person whose house then actually burns, then this becomes some kind of distributed, externalized risk mitigation. And that's how insurance works. And how, even though the entire industry has a really bad reputation, and especially when it comes to international health insurance, you often see a lot of bad comments, and I guess we will touch that later in this episode, where this is coming from and what the actual truth is behind that. But in general, insurance works, and most of the companies out there are quite reputable, and you can rely on them actually meeting their obligations and paying for your medical needs.
Yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit later, but first let's go back. The thing about having an insurance, I renew my insurance once a year, and every time I do, I'm thinking, yeah, I maybe had a little bit for a checkup or some medication here and there, but they made a ton of money off me. And is it really necessary? And some people might think, Well, not in my case. I'm young and healthy. So some younger nomads might think I'm old and healthy. No, some might think, well, I'm young and healthy. I'll be fine. Do I really need to spend all that money on insurance? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sometimes I get dragged into conversations where someone says like, yeah, I'm in my 20s, I'm healthy, I'm vegan, I'm doing yoga, I don't need health insurance. And I usually tend to not even engage in these conversations because the underlying thought is just plain stupid. Because, I mean, you don't buy insurance to cover your little expenses that you could cover out of your own pocket. So if you once a year catch a sickness, need to see a doctor for that, or you have this unavoidable motorbike accident in Thailand where you maybe get some scratches and break a bone. These are things that are not breaking the bank. You could pay for that out of your own pocket. Insurance is in place to cover existential financial risks. And these are things that you cannot avoid by eating vegan and doing yoga. And most people often think the worst thing that can happen is an accident, because these are the dramatic news. This is where the things that you see in social media, if someone had a dramatic accident, and that raises your awareness. But when it comes to the pure numbers, like what actually costs money in medical care, it's long-term things. It's chronic diseases. It's autoimmune reactions. It's things that just happen even to the healthiest people. And I mean, I don't want to talk about like the negativities, but I mean, you buy insurance for worst case scenarios, and those worst case scenarios exist, where people in their late 20s, early 30s get some major liver or kidney disease and need a kidney replacement. This is something when you need a donor organ, you will be in medical attention for a very long time, because it's not only finding the donor and getting the organ transplant, it's then also being on immune suppressants, like long-term observation and these kind of things. And that's also where there is a misconception, and I want to talk about that later as well, when people want to save money on their health insurance and say that they only want inpatient coverage. So things that happen inside the hospital where you need to stay in hospitals overnight. Yes, these are usually, again, what people often think the most dramatic things: an accident, you break bones, you end in the intensive care unit until you're healthy again, and you walk out of the hospital as a healthy human. But actually, what really costs money are these things that then usually take a lot of long-term aftercare that is not inpatient, that is outpatient. So you need medication, you need follow-up checkups and all these kind of things. Or if you need a dialysis in case your liver fails on you, then this is a very expensive outpatient treatment that you will need for a very long time, if not even for the rest of your life. And so when it comes to smart decisions for medical insurance, it's not smart to buy on to save on the coverage level and only buy inpatient, but it would be smart for young and healthy people to rather go for a higher coverage level, but also a high deductible. This is where it really pays off. Yeah,
let's pause here and dive a little bit more into that. The smart choice is how not to overpay and the balance between coverage and deductibles. And please speak to me like I'm 5 years old.
Let's start with one point that you mentioned earlier, and that's like when you do your annual renewal and you wonder how much you got out of your insurance in relation to what you put in. Insurance is something that you should never look at from an ROI perspective.
And just to make it clear, ROI, return of investment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you have a high ROI on your insurance, that means your life sucks. That means you had a bad case of, in case of medical insurance, that means you're really, really sick. So you don't want to be in a place where you have a positive ROI of your health insurance.
So I should be happy when my insurance company makes money.
I mean, they are just like a normal business that has the usual profit rates like every other industry. The profit of Apple is many times higher than of any insurance company. And you're happily giving money to Apple for their products.
Well, not happily.
Insurance companies usually have a margin of like 3 to maximum 5% because they distribute the money that they get. They have a risk calculation, and there are some huge risks every year, statistically speaking. We just had one recently among our clients where a couple had a baby in the US that came way too early. I mean, that baby is very healthy today, but it had to be under intensive care for the first couple of weeks of their life. And as it happened in the US, the entire medical costs piled up to more than 800,000 USD. That's what insurance is there for. And that's why you need to look closely and make a smart decision when you buy insurance, and don't try to cut corner by going with a company that might be very loud in their marketing, but you missed to read the fine print and missed to understand in which country's law is applicable, and where you would meet the insurance representatives in court if things go south. So it's really important to put at the beginning of the contract, put some energy into understanding who you're dealing with. And if this is not very clear for you, and if the company's registration and their supervision is not in a jurisdiction that you trust, then rather pick another one. But back to your original question. So I was talking about the ROI and a smart decision for insurance. Yeah, let's put that as the big headline. The best insurance is the one that you never need. It's a risk mitigation. And you want to make sure that in this worst case scenario, you're actually covered. And so what makes a lot of sense is if you are a young and healthy person, you barely see a doctor, and your medical costs in every given year is 100 euros or dollars or less, then you don't want to bother with claiming that from an insurance company. What you want to do in return is to agree on a deductible. That means for the first part of this agreed amount of money in medical costs per year, you pay that out of your own pocket, and the insurance only kicks in after that. And the rule of thumb is if you have a deductible per year of 1,000 USD or euros, then in return, you save 1,200 in annual premiums. So that pays off. And that means if you have little or no medical costs in a year, you have saved those 1,200 in any case. And if you have a bad year with a lot of medical costs, then you pay for the first 1,000 out of your own pocket, and the insurance company jumps in after that. And the 1,000 also is the sweet spot. I often have clients that ask for very high deductible in order to save a lot of money, but actually the effect fades after the 1,000, and that is very easy to explain. If you are in a pool with people that have zero deductible, that means there are a lot of people around you that claim their $3.50 hay fever pills from the insurance company, and with every claim produce admin costs of, let's say, $50 for the payout of $3.50. So that means if you have a large number of very small claims, the admin costs in relation to that are out of proportion. And that's why plans with zero deductible are proportionately more expensive than if you are in a pool with people that only claim from their insurance if the costs are high. So if you have more than 1,000 a year, because then the admin costs are again in a proportion to the claims and the payout that actually makes sense. And that's, again, if you go for a higher deductible, some insurance companies offer like 5K, 10K in deductible, but the effect gets really, it doesn't make any sense anymore. So I really recently had a calculation and a longer debate about that with a customer where we just looked into it and realized that coming from the base cost of what the insurance costs per year with no deductible, I think in that case was like around 5K a year. So with 1K in deductible, you save 1,200 in premiums. And with 5K in deductible, you then just save 2,000 in premiums. And then it gets less and less in relation to the month. So it just doesn't make any sense. A deductible in the ballpark of 1,000 That's the sweet spot. That makes sense. Having no deductible is usually something that people choose, for example, when they expect a kid. So couples that want to found a family and they know that they will have a lot of claims, like checkups and some supplements and whatever will be happening during pregnancy and then over childbirth. Then, of course, if you know that there is a lot to claim, then you maybe don't want to bother with collecting bills and stuff. But for a generally healthy person, a deductible always makes sense.
When becoming a nomad and you're starting to look at it, maybe some people will think, well, I just need a travel insurance, but that's not the case. So can you explain the difference between regular travel insurance and health insurance for nomads?
Oh, absolutely. It used to be a big misconception, but I feel like now even every blogger and YouTuber who talks about the topic has understood the difference. But it depends a little bit on your lifestyle. I mean, there are use cases for both of that. If you are a person who is still registered in their home country and has a home country health insurance coverage, and you're just a seasonal nomad going to work remotely for the winter season from Southeast Asia, leaving in October and coming back in April, then a long-term travel insurance on top of your home country health insurance is good enough. That, depending on your age bracket, usually costs you, like, if it's a good one, 50, 60 euros or dollars per month. And that will cover all the medical risks in your destination country. So that means the travel insurance always has a maximum duration. Like, many people start out with, like, I have that on my credit card. But the credit card insurance plans, or the annual insurance plans that you can often buy in many countries, are for vacationers, for holiday trips. So they have a certain amount of maximum days outside of your home country when you cover. That's usually, like, with the cheap ones, 30 days, sometimes 45 days. With the really, really good ones, 90 days. And once that's over, you're just not covered anymore at all. That's why they're so cheap, because also the medical risk abroad increases over time. From an insurance perspective, it's very easy to look at the behavior of people. If a vacationer is on holiday for 3 weeks and let's say they chip a piece of their tooth or something minor happens, they won't see a doctor in their destination country because they think, like, hey, I'm back home next week anyway. Then I see my doctor back home. So there are very little claims for minor things in travel insurance. But for longer trips, if you're in your destination country for 3 months and you won't come home before another 3 months, you will see a local dentist to fix your tooth. And that's why the annual insurance is so much cheaper than long-term travel insurance. So again, usually up to 1 year that's available on the market. In some countries, if you take them out before you leave, there are long-term travel insurance plans for up to 5 years, but they always have a limited duration. They are always only for a trip and expire when you return. So what does travel insurance do? They cover the medical emergencies in your destination country. So everything that can be fixed or contained in your destination. But as soon as something severe happens and you need a major treatment, the travel insurance will repatriate you back home into the coverage of your underlying home country insurance. And that's super important to know. I have so often requests by clients that leave their home country, that stop contributing to the social security system there and get out of their health insurance back in their home country and just buy a long-term travel insurance. Everything that costs below 100 euros or dollars a month is not health insurance. It's just travel insurance. And even though the insurance company will never ask you if you have an underlying health insurance, it does not work. It doesn't make any sense. If you only have this travel insurance and in a severe case, they fly you back home and you don't have coverage back in your home country, then the travel insurance in the first place was a waste of money. Mm-hmm. So if you are giving up your home country coverage, then that means you need a comprehensive international health insurance plan. And that, again, depends on your age bracket. A good one, if you're in your late 20s, early 30s, should cost you around a really good one, 300 euros or dollars a month. You can drive that down with deductibles, as mentioned earlier. But the key is that a comprehensive international health insurance plan covers you wherever you are, so it doesn't necessarily repatriate you, and it comes with an unlimited duration. That's another topic you mentioned earlier. You are renewing yours every day, Palle. Maybe you want to review that with your lifestyle. I know it is a very common thing with American providers, for example, Cigna and others. They always only offer you 12-month contracts and then offer you to renew. If you're not used to anything else, that looks like normal. But if you build your long-term location-independent lifestyle on that, you would want to go for a health insurance with an unlimited contract duration. So a company that does a medical underwriting at the beginning and then stays with you for the rest of your life, if you want that, if you pay for the premiums. They can't walk away from you ever. While these 12-month renewal plans, they will always make you a renewal offer after 12 months. But sometimes if your personal medical history, your costs derail, then they will only make you a renewal offer that you can only refuse. And so that means technically the insurance company can walk away from you, and then you end up in a very unfortunate situation. So for people who have a long-term approach to their location-independent lifestyle, I highly recommend to look into contracts that at first don't have a ridiculously low overall coverage level. The good ones don't have an annual limit at all, or others have maybe one in a ballpark of like 3 million, 5 million a year. That's what you would want to have with a long-term coverage and an unlimited contract duration.
So what are some of the common mistakes that nomads make when they're choosing a policy?
I think the most common mistake is they don't properly read what they're buying.
But there's a lot of letters. And it's small print.
Yeah, and unfortunately, even AI is not really helpful. I recently had a case where a customer had a comparison of two different plans that I had suggested and confronted me with the AI came to the opposite conclusion of what I suggested. And then I was like, how can that happen? And then I read again through this particular question, the fine print. And I realized as these both insurance fine print, the wordings, the terms and conditions, were just using a very different words for the same thing. The AI just didn't grasp that. And so unfortunately, so you either go with a licensed independent insurance broker that represents you as a customer and is not an agent of a company that you trust and that has a liability and liability insurance as well, or you do the legwork yourself and read through the fine prints and make sure that there are no surprises in there. Because that's, again, also the topic that leads to the bad reputation of the industry. If you read reviews out there, and often I have customers that do their own homework and research about the insurance companies that I suggest, and then they come back with like, yeah, but I found these negative reviews here. What do you say about that? And my answer is very simple. You will find negative reviews about every single insurance company. And the reason for that is not that the insurance company doesn't want to pay rightful claims. The reason is that people did not read what they bought. They believe that they have a high coverage, but they opted for the lower price in a comparison without looking for the reason for the low price. And then they file a claim for something that's objectively not covered. And the insurance company refuses, and then the customer blames the insurance company for not paying, because that's always the easy way. If you dig into these stories and you talk about that and try to understand what did they actually claim, at what kind of coverage level, then you realize they just didn't make an educated decision when buying it. They tried to cut corners and save money at the wrong side. And blame the insurance company, and that's where many of the bad ratings are coming from.
So I guess we've all had the case where we think you're covered in something, and then you get refused, and the insurance company doesn't want to pay. Should we just take that for what they say, or is there a way that we could enforce something when they don't want to pay?
That's a very good question. So in general, if you are absolutely sure that your claim is covered and the insurance company still tries to reject, then you don't need to take that. There are ways to enforce. The first one is if you have an insurance broker on your side. Many people don't know what that means. A licensed broker is a person like an attorney. So it is a legal position that is very similar to your representative in court. So the insurance broker is not representing any insurance company. The insurance broker is representing you as the customer.
Yeah, I had the impression that an insurance broker was more or less an insurance salesperson. You sell the insurance and then you're off.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are many in the market, many brokers that see it in the same way. But actually, my work as an insurance broker, I would say, is about one half consultation of new clients and helping them into the contract, including the medical underwriting, doing pre-approvals with underwriters. So when customers approach me with some pre-existing conditions, then as a broker in between, we can anonymize that and do pre-inquiries and get the ultimate pricing for a person to make a decision before disclosing the identity. So that's an additional layer where we offer value. But the other half of my job is a lot about the follow-up during the contract duration, like helping to enforce claims, helping to adjust coverage levels, getting a newborn into the contract, all these kind of things. So as an insurance broker, we are always the first point in contact for these kind of things. And let's say in many cases, when a claim gets rejected, it's often a question of misunderstandings. So most of them are super easy to solve. Just talking to both sides. So usually our client refers the email with a rejection, and then I read through the rejection of the claim and immediately understand what the insurance actually wanted to see and what the client filed. So these are the easiest cases when you just explain to the client in different words how he or she should just try it again. And health insurance pays for things that are medically necessary. So it's always important to make sure that there is an underlying ailment, a pain or something, and a diagnosis based on symptoms. I mean, the more expensive plans, they pay for checkups that don't have an immediate medical necessity. But usually everything that you want to be covered, that you want to be paid for, needs to follow this logic of being a treatment of an ailment based on a medical diagnosis. And so this is already first of the step. And then, and sometimes it escalates a little bit where it's more than just a misunderstanding. Then I pick up the phone and talk to the people on the side of the insurance company. I mean, as a broker, we actually do drive significant business to these companies, and that means they listen to us. We have direct contacts. If we want to clarify something without taking it to court in the first place, that in 99% of the cases works. And if it's not a black and white decision and there is some wiggle room, then often with our intervention, the insurance companies give in. And in fact, since I work in this field of international health insurance, I had never had to take something to court. We could always solve problems before court, but then also, yes, as brokers, we help our clients, if necessary, to escalate further. And that's where it's important to understand that you are with a legit insurance company that has a legit license, ideally in your home country, or at least in like a proper Western country. So if you see, let's say, there are companies around in our industry with what I call a Caribbean fake license. So they get like an offshore license from Costa Rica that literally says they are not allowed to sell any insurance product into the domestic market of Costa Rica, only to abroad. And for that, in return, they don't need to do reporting and all these kinds of things that even we as a broker need to do towards our financial supervision authority here in Estonia, where we are licensed. You really need to make sure that you understand the jurisdiction and the governing law of your insurance contract. And then, of course, you can take things, whether to an ombudsman as a first step, you can complain at the supervision authority, or as last resort, of course, you can absolutely take a claim to court.
I'm always very anxious when filing something that, am I phrasing it the right way? The insurance that I have doesn't cover regular dentist work. But if there's something that happens where I break a tooth as a result of eating something, for example, I get that fixed. It happened to me when I was in Koh Lanta a couple of years ago. I broke a tooth after having some chicken, and my insurance covered that. So that was good. And then a month ago, I was in Ireland, and again, I had some chicken. Maybe I should stay away from the chicken. And a part of a filling of my tooth fell out. It's just annoying. It's not a huge problem, but it's something I want fixed, and it's not visible, so I'm good. But I filed the complaint again, and I said to them, well, I can get it fixed when I'm going on a visit to Denmark in a couple of weeks. And then they said, well, it doesn't cover because you're not in pain, and you can go a couple of weeks. And they said, well, you had some chicken, and you should expect that there are chicken bones. And so all of a sudden, they didn't want to pay that.
But they gave you a hint with that already when they said you're not in pain. Many of these insurance plans out there, they have in the lower tiers dental coverage only for pain relief.
Yeah.
And so that gives you the hint.
Yeah.
I don't need to talk myself into something here. You understand what I mean, as well as our very intelligent listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. What about gear insurance? Because as a nomad, we travel often with a lot of gear, laptops, cameras, and equipment. In my case, microphones. What about that?
Yeah, I get so many requests for that. But unfortunately, there's not a single product out there in the market that would make any sense. There are some companies offer it as a top-up to their travel insurance, but if you have a closer look, they have high deductibles. They would only cover the current value, not the repurchasing value. And then they have a high list of requirements. If it's stolen, you need to file a police report and present a police report. I mean, this makes sense. But if it's just broken, let's say if you have a water damage or something, then they often work with their own network of repair shops. So you need to send it to their repair shop and then maybe get it back in what kind of condition and what time later, you don't know. And they're expensive. So usually to cover, let's say your $2,000 MacBook, you pay an amount of money with a high deductible and a low payout rate based on the current value that it doesn't make any sense. Put this money aside into your rainy days fund. And from that, you can lose your MacBook every 3 years and buy a new one.
Yeah, we could talk a lot more about this topic, maybe something about income protection and liability, but that's just going down a rabbit hole, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, income protection is not really a thing on the international market. There are two providers out there that one of them offers it as a standalone product, the other one as an add-on to their health insurance, but it usually only covers salary income. So you need to prove your income and where it's coming from and stuff. And as most of us location independent entrepreneurs or whether freelancers or having a company set up where we live off dividend payouts from our legal entity somewhere, and that usually all doesn't qualify for the income protection plan. So it's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's possible, but it's not easy.
No. And this whole conversation, if you should sum it up into one or two sentences, what is the one piece of advice you would give to first-time nomads sorting out their insurance? What is that? Take the topic seriously, make an educated decision, ideally not just by yourself or with ChatGPT, but talk to an industry expert. Get yourself some free advice, book a free consultation with an insurance broker. It doesn't cost you anything, but it will only make you smarter. Thank you, Christoph, for letting me pick your brain in this very important topic. And hearing about it, it's not as boring as I thought. So it's just something that's super, super important for us nomads. Absolutely. And I mean, I like doing this job because I really feel that I can help people save a lot of money or, I mean, ultimately save their health and lives. So making people aware for
smart and educated decisions when it comes to this very existential risk mitigation is something that oftentimes comes with high satisfaction, and customers that are very happily referring to their friends, bringing new customers. That's a really nice feeling.
And that's it for this episode of the Nomad Summit podcast. If you found some value in it, please share it with some of your friends who might also be thinking about insurance for nomads. And we will see you in the next episode next Wednesday.
Bye-bye.
Produced by radioguru.co.uk.